Okay, so
Okay,
that's
put your phone
going.
on stun, seriously. Turn it. If you want vibrate, that's fine.
Oh, I got enough vibrate.
Okay, that's good.
Okay,
We call it stun.
I'm gonna go ahead and go live.
Okay.
Okay?
Now?
No, I'll.
Okay, all right. Again,
Hold
we're,
on.
we're,
It's a little crooked.
Enhance your calm.
I'm never calm.
We go back a little bit, don't ignore us.
No worries at all.
We
I
should
like
go
the
on the
banter.
road.
Yeah.
Vaudeville. He's old enough to know what vaudeville is.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'll be your opening act. if
There you go.
want. See? Sing, dance, little mariachi.
So I usually try to make it funny.
Good.
I'll let you determine.
Okay, I'm just quiet for 1 second.
One of the things I've learned, don't cough into the mic. If you can avoid it.
And try not to touch the mic.
Hello.
Okay, no licking.
Hello. Welcome to another exciting adventure of Tech Tuesdays. This is a joint effort with South Florida Tech Hub and the OWWL app. I am your host for today, your host, Jeffry Ullman, Director of Membership and Partnership at South Florida Tech Hub. If you're watching us live, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. If you're watching us on the replay, thank you for that. If you'd like to reach out to me on OWWL, you can do that. If you already have the OWWL app. If you don't have the OWWL app, please download it. And if you download it and use a referral code of thank you, as a thank you, pun intended, you'll get $10 to start. If you want to call in during the show, you can do that. Call me, Jeffry Ullman, and we'll take your call. Excuse me. We'll also be calling out a little later today. So we'll get started in a few minutes, but have an announcement of some upcoming events. So a little quick background. South Florida Tech Hub, we focus on four core areas, say that fast. Brand, South Florida, Tech Talent Fest, Tech Talent, which we recently just had our Tech Talent Fest for the shortage thereof of tech talent, entrepreneurship and startups, and the fourth pillar is community. We feel it's important to build a community within the tech and I guess the larger community as well. So our last networking event of the year is going to be Wednesday, December 18th in Miami. It's going to be a three-way networking event with SIM, the Society of Information Management. They have a very active South Florida chapter, and ISACA, ISACA. That's the Information Systems Audit and Control Association. I had to look that up. That's why they call it ISACA, I guess. Also a very, very active local chapter. So it'll be a three-way event, South Florida Tech Hub, SIM, and ISACA. A shout out to our sponsors so far, City Furniture, Pure Storage, Dexian, eCenter, and or Centire, my apologies, and the Law Office of James Steppens. So thanks to our sponsors. It's also a toy drive. So come out, have some fun, and bring a toy for the Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital. Excuse me. I think that's enough for me right now. Why don't we go and get started? I'm going to let Craig introduce himself, and then we'll have Glen introduce himself, and then we'll go forward. So, Craig, it's yours.
Thank you.
Who are you? Why are you here?
Thanks for the introduction. My name is Dr. Craig Adis. I am the Chief Technology Officer at Revive Energy Solutions, which is 100% owned by Guidant Corporation. I manage the project of the regenerative shock absorbers that we make for enhancing the range of electric vehicles. And that's a little bit of background on me. We'll talk more later.
Okay, Glen.
Oh, that's a hard act to follow, by the way.
Glen, do you have a PhD?
I have a PhD in CYA.
Okay.
I make sure I cover everything.
There you go.
Craig is now getting the joke. Thank
Okay.
you, Craig. Glenn Benjamin, my day job is with an organization called Land Infotech. I'm a community account director, community outreach. You will find me everywhere. If you're not finding me, it means you're not trying. Besides what we do in the IT consulting, cyber security space, data backup. We're also we're heavily involved in AI. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point today. Last week I was with Jeff down in Miami at FIU where we had Tech Talent Fest.
Right.
Spoke to lots of students, that was cool. And the last thing I'll say about AI is we're actually introducing at Glen Infotech an AI tool for grant funding to help nonprofits find that money. We've been doing it for years manually, and this magical 4-letter word called AI has sprung upon us, and we're going to show we're going to show nonprofits how to take advantage very quickly with all of that great tool that we offer.
Okay, we're going to come back to that. So, Craig, again, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I am familiar already with Guidant and Revive. We're going to focus more on, I think, the Revive, which is a subsidiary of Guidant.
Mhm.
So you mentioned what the technology is, but can you kind of describe it in a little more detail and how it works? And actually, maybe before we talk about that, I forgot to ask you about your personal journey.
Sure.
And where you went to school and all that. So tell us a little more about you, your journey, how you ended up here, and then talk a little more about the Revive technology.
Sure. So I did my PhD at Florida Atlantic University in mechanical engineering. And so while I was going to school there, I focused on neuroprosthetics and intelligent control systems. And in the mechanical engineering department that we had there, there's a small machine shop. And so one of the mentors that I worked with in there, Fred Knapp, he and I got really close, and I ended up buying a small machine shop. And so I got into CNC and all of that, and Fred actually got contracted by Guidant to build the first 8 prototypes of this device. And so he and I working together, he subcontracted me, and while I was working on schooling, we worked on developing the first 8 of these prototypes. And so the prototypes, essentially the product is a shock absorber for your car. And so everybody that drives down the road, the shock absorber is what makes it so that the bumps don't make you feel like you're jostling all around and gives you stability on the road. And essentially what we've developed is we have a patent that we acquired from a university on a shock absorber that produces electrical energy. And so the patent was on this mechanical motion rectifier. And so inside of this device, essentially, let me take a step back. So the shock absorber itself, as you drive down the road, the vibrations of the road, we harness that into electrical energy. And that electrical energy is used then to extend the range of your electric vehicle and extend the time between when you have to go from charge to charge, so you can go longer in between charges. So that shock absorber, we built 8 of those devices, and that's how I got involved with the company as Guidant. And so at the time it was just Guidant, and inside of Guidant there's another individual named Michael Trank, and he had developed some of the electronics for this device. And so he and I started working really closely together and developed the first proof of concept that we build mechanically. We developed in the machine shop, and then inside of Guidant, we developed the electronics that allow us to convert that electrical energy into usable wattage that you can charge a battery with. And then that's when we both just love working with each other. Guidant, everybody there, we had a really good relationship, and they offered me a job, and I've been working with Guidant since.
So let me, and I apologize if this is being basic or redundant,
Sure,
but
no
the way I understand the technology, which I think is fascinating, effectively the shock absorbers in your car, every car has them,
Mm-hmm.
it's effectively wasted energy
Mhm.
as the car goes up and down.
Mhm.
So effectively you're harnessing the wasted, quote unquote, wasted energy
Mhm.
to effectively continue and charge the battery for the electric battery in your EV for additional mileage. Is that a fair summary?
Yes.
It's fascinating. Well, let me ask you a question. Where are y'all in terms of the journey, in terms of bringing the product to market?
That's exactly where we're at, is going to market.
Going to market, okay.
As we've gone through extensive testing, we've built the prototypes, we've proved the functionality of the device, and the next stage is going to market.
So are you currently looking to work with, let's say, existing shock absorber manufacturers to license the technology?
Mhm.
I'm assuming y'all aren't going to be in the business of physically building
No.
and producing shock absorbers, correct?
No, we're not going to be manufacturing it. We're going to work with manufacturers, and we're looking for a structure like licensing with some royalties, something along those lines.
Is there any company, don't say anything, that you shouldn't under NDA, is there any company you're close to or recently signed that we can talk about, or is that still a work in progress?
So I can't mention any names, but we have worked with some tier 1 manufacturers on doing proof of concepts, and we went out to their facilities, we did some testing, we evaluated the shock absorber for power output and for how it compares to traditional shock absorbers, because if you take a shock absorber out of your car and you put this device in, it still needs, the shock absorber and the suspension, it performs a function for driving down the road. You can't just take that away to try and harness energy. And so
Right.
those were the two main things that we went out for testing and evaluating.
Does it require, can it be a drop-in?
Yeah.
Can you take out existing shock absorbers in an EV and put yours in without doing any other modifications
Yeah.
to the car?
So
Wow.
so we did this on a Ford F-150. It took me, I timed myself 6 minutes to take out the old shock, put in our shock, and then the electrical wiring back to the box. But as far as physically swapping out the shock was just like swapping out any traditional shock
Wow.
absorber.
Interesting. Well, let me,
May I?
go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Glenn, are you here? Go
No.
ahead.
I'm his humble servant.
Go ahead. Sorry, Glenn. I was hogging the mic. Go
You
ahead.
mentioned earlier that you were able to extend the life or the charge. By how much?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Because what does that mean to my user listening here? Am I going to get another 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10? What does that really mean? Because this is revolutionary.
Yes.
Right?
So you could think of this in terms of two ways. One of them is miles per year. So you could think of it, you can get up to like 500 miles additional that you can drive per year that you wouldn't have been able to without this. So that's one metric that you can look at. Another important factor in there is that it depends heavily on the type of vehicle, the road conditions that you're driving on. A rougher road will produce more power, etc. I would say that that's the main factor that's really kind of involved there.
So that's like 2 charges a year because you get about 300 miles
So
per charge.
so between
almost.
like 2 and 4% range extension, about like 6 to 12 miles per charge is something that you could think of in terms of numbers of the value per charge, and then that's also dependent upon, like, some batteries are larger storage capacity batteries, and so those have a larger range initially, and so if you look at a percentage of that, about 2 to 4% is what you can look at. in
That's still
extension there.
very revolutionary.
Oh yeah.
And no one's doing this today, I'm assuming, right?
Well, there's other companies that are definitely going down these ventures, and so that's one of the things that was different about this technology and why we really went heavily into developing it and testing and proving the concept is that we have a patent on what's called a mechanical motion rectifier. And so normally, like when you have something that's trying to oscillate back and forth, you have the motor that's moving back and forth. Our device it rectifies that so that.
Craig, I don't mean to interrupt you. You gotta talk a little closer to the mic.
about
Sorry.
that.
It's all right.
No, keep it. Just reminding you that I'll do it.
It's all right.
I was trying to point, but it didn't work.
So basically, as the device moves up and down, our motor continuously rotates in one direction, so it doesn't have to stop and rotate back and forth. That increases the efficiency based upon the initial evaluations at the university where we acquired the patent by about 70% in efficiency. And so that was one of the really, really interesting things is we're not the only ones working on this. And we believe, and this is something that we truly believe, that just like regenerative braking and photovoltaic devices, that regenerative shock absorbers will be something prevalent in every single electric vehicle that gets manufactured.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to come back to that. I think everybody that has an EV understands the concept of regenerative braking. I don't currently have an EV. My next car is going to be an EV. So regenerative braking is the concept of when you brake, your EV will take that wasted energy and also use it to charge the battery as well, correct?
Yes.
So you all have effectively done a similar kind of thing with the up and down motion of shock absorbers.
It's almost identical to the same type of technology, just on shock absorbers. Yes.
Question, I'll play devil's advocate for a minute.
Sure.
I like my old shock absorbers. I don't want that extra charge in my battery because I'm frugal. What's the relative cost of just hardware to hardware, separate to then the additional charging capability of your shock absorbers.
So
To existing shock absorbers.
There's a lot of factors that would go into the cost in manufacturing, in the quantity, and today's more of, I think, like on the technology side that we'll talk about. If you guys would like to talk more about the cost of this, that's something that our sales team are happy to
Okay.
get involved there. They can give you a better answer on that than I
Okay.
can.
Okay, fair question. So, anyone out there that's interested in, well, let me back up. So first of all, thanks again for being on the show. Great,
Thank you.
great overview, great discussion of the technology. Assuming someone does want to follow up with you, hopefully to find out more about licensing the technology, why don't you go ahead and spell out the URL, even though it's on your shirt, of Guidant. Is it better that they go to Guidant and then scroll down for Revive, or you want them to go directly to a Revive website? What's your preference?
So Revive is on the Guidant
Okay.
website. It's just going to basically be www.guident, which is spelled here
Right there.
.com
Okay.
/Revive.
Okay, perfect.
REV. And I didn't actually mention the Revive part. I talked about Guidant. And so Revive, as we developed the product and it became more and more deep into the project, we got a second patent on another type of functionality that this device does.
Okay.
And we formulated it into Revive Energy Solutions so that we can have it as a package within Guidant. Fully,
Okay.
again, a full subsidiary 100% owned by Guidant. But just for everybody in the background, that's where Revive Energy Solutions comes from, is that we formulated everything in a packet, because Guidant actually develops teleoperations for autonomous vehicles, and we wanted to have that as a package we could put together for when we're trying to license this out to somebody.
By the way, love the name, Revive Energy.
Thank you.
It's important. It's important to have a good name.
We sat down many nights and we worked with ChatGPT back and forth.
Even if you did pay somebody for that, it was well worth it. I think that's a great name. I'm sorry, Glenn. Did you have another
I
question?
think I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
It sounds like you guys are going in the right direction, but what are some of the challenges you're facing as you try to bring this to market, compete against maybe known or unknown competitors?
Mm-hmm.
You are absolutely disruptive with what you're thinking, which is what most technology tends to be. You will be successful, but I'm curious, what's getting in your way right now?
Rather than saying that something's getting in our way, I would say that the more and more that we move towards EVs, which is something that's happening, is that more EVs will be on the road and more cars will need this type of technology. And so, as I said, we believe that every vehicle, just like regenerative shock absorbers, will have this technology in it. And the challenges as you move towards there are, one, where you had mentioned, was you like your old shock absorbers. And so, like, why would I even change?
It ain't
my old
broke,
shock-
don't fix it.
Right, they're not broke, don't fix it. So some of the things that we as a company, we really always try to move towards is striving towards safety and peace of mind when you get into these vehicles. And so in addition, I mentioned the second patent that we applied for, we actually have semi-active dampers. So like your normal shock absorber, it has one function. And some cars, they have active shock absorbers where they're like electronic and they have the ability to change them. Our shock absorber, because it's connected to an electrical circuit, we can take sensors from the car and feed that back into the shock absorber and allow it to dynamically change its damping forces in real time. And so you can think of that can improve the ability for your car to stop, to shorten the distance at which it takes to stop by adjusting the shock absorbers. You can increase your stability in corners. Again, you can harness energy so that, I mean, if we can do that, we might as well. And one thing we did as a calculation is that really is like, it's not really a problem with implementing these, is that if you look at a comparison of the weight to power density of the batteries that you put inside of a vehicle, we did a calculation and comparison of these, and this shock absorber at the ranges of up to 4% is actually more efficient than replacing just the battery. And so that's where you can look at the comparison of like when we move forward as a society of trying to think of the global efficiency, not just this one product, is we have millions and millions of vehicles out there, little bits on each one can make a big impact. And so it's really exciting to see a lot of different companies working on this, and some of the challenges are really the perspective in our mind of what things are and how things are, and changing that frame of reference and the frame of perspective of what we can do and what, I mean, in the past we had horse and buggies, and we don't have those anymore. We drive
Right.
many cars, so
Yeah.
so I look at it kind of
Do
like
you
that.
guys still have a horse and buggy? You had one
Yeah,
originally.
I'm that old, yes.
Cool.
I just turned 107 last week, yeah.
Let me.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Can I follow up on this?
No.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Are governments, federal, local, state, helping you
Great
get this?
Um,
Go ahead. Go
So
for it.
we didn't apply for any grants on this yet, but that is something that as technology moves forward, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot more efforts in energy. The government definitely has stuff out there, but that wasn't something that we applied for yet at the moment.
You will. Okay.
Let me
So
ask
hopefully-
a follow-on to what Glenn just asked. He said it in a nice way. I'll be a little more blunt.
Sure.
Without naming any names, when you've approached, so for example, you said you're not going to be in the business of physically manufacturing shock
Correct,
absorbers,
correct.
which makes a lot of sense. So therefore, you're going to be going to existing companies that make that manufacture shock absorbers, or you're going to be going to the actual automotive companies that build the EVs. Without naming any names, unless you want to name names, obviously, I think you must have had conversations with all the companies that build the EVs to ultimately, over time, from start of manufacture, include your shock absorbers. What's generally been the response? Are they, hey, this is great, or leave us alone, it ain't broke, we don't want to use them? Kind of what's been the response from the existing the companies that currently make EVs?
Yeah, the response has been very, very positive. Everybody's excited about the technology, and it comes down to, as I mentioned, is the economical efficiency of, is it efficient to put this into a car? Is it something that's what we went through all of this testing and evaluating
Okay.
for, was to validate the functionality of the device itself.
Okay, so generally, is it fair to say they've been positive about it?
Very positive,
Okay,
yes.
well that's good to
Yeah,
hear.
we actually worked with one of the tier 1 manufacturers of tires, and with that company, we did a lot of testing in their facility. They had a huge facility with drums that the tires rotated on. We evaluated the accelerations inside of the cabin at the wheel wells. We drove around the city, evaluated the power outputs. So yeah, we definitely have worked with and collaborated with tier 1 manufacturers and other testing facilities to validate the product.
Right, as Glenn mentioned, oftentimes with the disruptive technology that's revolutionary, which yours is,
Mhm.
you get pushback from entrenched companies. They don't always want to embrace, unfortunately, new technology. That's great to hear. I guess one more related question. I hadn't thought about this, but with the advent of more, not only personal EVs, but for freight and truck EVs. Just to drop a name, I saw Tesla. I think they now have an electric truck.
Yeah.
You mentioned the savings would vary depending on the use. A truck is going to get driven a lot more than a car generally. So is there even, well, do you have a version that would work on large, industrial freight trucks? And assuming you do, would the savings would be even greater? Stop that, Glenn.
Steph is my friend. Hi, Steph.
Glenn, stop that.
So putting this onto a vehicle like that, absolutely. The trade-off really is that the mass of the vehicle and the road conditions. So the more vibrations that you have and the heavier the vehicle is, the more that you can harness out of the device. The other thing that you were mentioning is whether or not this is this is basically an agnostic device. The mechanical motion rectifier has an input shaft and an output shaft, and so we took an off-the-shelf linear actuator and we attached it to the end of it.
Sorry,
so that,
you got to explain what that is.
I was about to say it. Go ahead.
Is that an oscillator bafflator?
Yeah, but this is a PhD in this
yeah,
stuff.
so it's part of the flux capacitors.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
Ah, very good.
I put my phone on stun. Don't worry.
Very good. Very good.
Basically, a linear actuator is a device that has inside a screw, the threads of like a screw, and a shaft that moves up and down on top of that. And so you can put a motor onto that, and basically by rotating the screw, you can move the shaft up and down, and you have this linear motion from rotational motion. And so inside of that is a package that is readily available off the shelf by many manufacturers. And so we took that off the shelf actuator that is essentially, I didn't bring it in here, it's in my car. I have one with me. It's in my car though.
We'll take a picture later.
Okay, we'll take a picture later. But the device itself,
Well, actually,
if you
I'm
want
going to talk to Glenn in a few minutes,
You
run
want me-
out and get it and
Okay,
come back. I'd love
sounds
to
good.
see it.
But I'll talk about it real quick right now.
Okay.
And so essentially that linear actuator that moves up and down, on the output side of that, we connect our mechanical motion rectifier. And so you could connect this device that converts that linear motion to the car, to a bridge, it's an energy harvesting device that we have a patent for connecting it specifically to the shock absorber of the car. But the device, the mechanical motion rectifier itself, can be connected to just about, you can put it on a tree branch. And
Got it.
it's converting that any oscillatory motion into single rotation, where you put an electric motor on there, a generator, and that then harvest energy out of it.
So
Cool.
I've
So-
got to ask before we
Sure.
throw them out to go grab the oscillator.
The flux
The
capacitor.
flux
Well, part of
capacitor,
it.
yeah. Sustainability, you're talking great technology. How's this going to help climate change potentially?
Mhm.
You could put this on boats, you could put this on anything that moves.
Mhm.
How do we help our environment? Because that's a big piece of what I do. I'm a resiliency manager, which in Florida means nothing because nobody listens. But here you've got a product, a service that's going to help generate energy on something that's already working. So there's no cost per se to do this, right? Because you're using something existing.
Yeah, so the cost of the device will really come down to the manufacturing change of the line, just to implement this specifically to a vehicle, tuning this to a vehicle. So really, like a manufacturer, somebody that has a vehicle that's going to have millions of these, or hundreds of thousands, or a large quantity of these vehicles, that little bit of each one added up is going to reduce the power that is on the electrical grid. But at the same time, what's the power that's being used to produce the device on the generator, like to actually to make it? So it's the difference in that energy, that like making a traditional shock absorber versus making this type of a shock absorber, where I see the manufacturing of that becoming something. I mean, we have really good people out there doing a lot of incredible stuff with manufacturing. So like as a planet, we got that really, really good. So in terms of like scaling it up, when you have millions of these being made, you can make them at a cost-effective point that starts tipping that point, where now the energy that it's producing is offsetting the energy that it's consuming, and now you have a device that continually will keep producing energy and offsetting from the grid while the vehicle's in function.
Wow.
That's the way I look at that.
Right.
So that's really the full economic scope, it feels like, of what's involved there.
And that's why you're here today. You're a tech expert. You have proven it. You're saying words I don't understand, and that's great.
If there's anything else I can clarify
Well,
on
go-
those words, definitely, let me know.
A picture or a device is worth 1,000 words. So we are live, we are real time. Go get it from your
Okay.
car, and
Got
I'll
it.
talk to Glenn.
And we'll keep it amongst
Yes.
ourselves.
Just don't talk
So,
about me.
so shifting gears a little,
Sure.
Glen Infotech, you mentioned, so before we do that, in addition to the new AI-based tool you have for nonprofits, talk a little about what other services that Land Infotech provides. So before you answer that, I'm going to embarrass Glen. Glen is on the board of Tech Hub, very active volunteer at Tech Hub, very active in the community. Tech Hub gave him an award recently for Community Impact
Champion.
There you go.
Champion.
There you go.
Yeah.
So tell us a little more about Land Infotech and maybe that new service you just
Sure.
mentioned.
So again, Land Infotech, we are somewhat of a traditional managed service provider. We're the folks, and there's bunches of us that say, we're going to go out there, help you manage your technology, and you don't touch it. In fact, if we see you touch it, the alarm goes off, you get electric shock through the wire. Don't do that again. But in all seriousness, it's pretty serious because, and I'm going to say it, I'm not going to mention names, but people that we talk to and tell them about what they should be doing. And by the way, I have a real title separate from all this. I mentioned it a little bit, Certified Business Resiliency Manager. I look at things that you probably don't that could put you out of service. And here we are in Hurricane Alley, and everybody says, I've not been hit by a hurricane. I have nothing to worry about. That may be true, but there's a lot of other things. So look at your business in terms of how long you could tolerate being out of service. When we have that conversation, if it's Jeff, you and I don't worry about hurricanes. That's fine. Other things can hit you, like power issues. Here we are talking a little about power. Floods never happens in Florida. We don't need a hurricane to have a flood. We the past couple of years, look what
Just the
happened.
rain.
Just the rain, yeah, 20 plus inches of rain in 24 hours. Nothing is designed to do that. So what do you do as a business? And Jeff, you run this high-tech business, and you get flooded out of your building and you don't have anything backed up. What do? Well, you're going to have to take all your paper out and try to put that together, and that could take you weeks or months. You're going to lose money during that time. So the way we look at it is real simple. We'll handle it. Our special guest is coming back.
All right.
And I'll finish in a second. So what we do is we'll sit down and talk to you. What can you tolerate from an outage perspective? Whether it's cyber, which is what we're spending most of our time doing, cyber, data backup, those type of things. But if you can't operate your business, and most people don't realize this number, a company that generates $1 million a year in productivity, do any of you know what an hour of that cost you? You want to take a guess? I'll ask Craig, he's the
Okay.
doctor. An hour of outage for $1 million business. What do you think that costs you an hour? And this will be the wake-up call, boys and girls.
I'm not sure.
Okay, Jeff, you're not gonna guess.
Okay.
You want to
You
do high,
tell-
low, Jeopardy?
Just
any of
tell
that?
us.
An hour of downtime is $10,000.
Right.
All right.
All right.
So when you sit there and go, well, I can handle 2, 3, 4 hours. That's cool. 40 grand, whole day, 80 grand, fine. What happens if this persists? So what we talk to clients about is how do I keep your keep your business running, no matter what happens. That's our game. And cyber is a huge piece. And because we have the equipment, I'm going to turn this back over to Craig because I have no idea what that stuff is.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
so I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah.
People want to reach out to you. I'm assuming you're on the OWWL app.
I'm
as
on
well.
the OWWL app.
All right. Do you have office hours, or you go on demand?
I'm on the road all the time, so it's hard to pin me down. I have a calendar like everybody else. Go to my email, I'll show you my availability. I could try to do that with Al, but
Okay. So if someone wants to follow up with you, then LinkedIn is a good way.
LinkedIn, Twitter, at Glen Benjamin.
Okay.
By the way, if you can't find me, that means you're not trying.
Okay.
Okay.
And if someone wants to look up Land Infotech on your website, what's the actual URL? Why don't you spell that?
LANINFOTECH.com.
Okay. Pretty
All right.
clear.
And I'm on all the social media. Again, it's easy to find me.
All right. Thank you. Ken.
You
So-
got it, and thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. So back to Craig. That's a flux capacitor?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. It's a regenerative energy producing shock absorber. Why don't you explain how that works? Well, what it is and what the components are and how it works.
So as I was mentioning, there's an off-the-shelf linear actuator. So that's this from like here.
Greg,
up.
I'm gonna interrupt you again. You guys talk a little closer. Sorry.
All right.
There you
So,
go.
essentially, the part I was talking about as the linear actuator is from here upward, and so this is the part that actually moves inside of the car. So, like you would connect in your car, you have one of these on the bottom,
Right.
and whatever the top of the car has, you just unscrew a bolt.
That's
put
it?
this in- That's it.
Oh, that's too easy.
Put this in, and then the device is installed in the vehicle. So this part moves up and down in place of the part in a traditional shock absorber that moves up and down. And internally here, inside of this is the off-the-shelf component that I mentioned. There's a screw inside of here that converts this movement up and down on the output to rotation. And so the output of that is connected to this bottom part here. This is the patent that we have. And so this is that mechanical motion rectifier. And inside of here, there's gears and there's something called a sprag clutch. And you can think of this, so like the explanation of that is like on a bicycle, how you can pedal in one direction, but then when the wheel can still turn when you're not pedaling. That's basically a sprag clutch. It's a clutch that allows one directional motion and not the other direction. And so by putting two of these inside of here where they're opposing each other, no matter which way you turn the input shaft, this output shaft will rotate in one direction and continue. It rotates for both directions. So you have vibrations here that are continuously just pecking at this part here essentially and moving this generator.
Why don't you turn that around
Yeah,
so
so
people can see? There you go.
so on the bottom here is essentially a generator. It's an electrical motor that all electrical motors, when you just move them, they produce power. And so you connect this to an electrical circuit, and on the electrical circuit, by changing the resistance of the circuit, you can change the damping forces that are felt by the car. And so what we did in when we developed the semi-active part of it is we implemented something that takes sensor information and allows us to vary that resistance so that by changing that you can change how this affects your car. And so in real time you can set that to say like comfort mode or max energy harvesting mode and have different types of profiles that you can set with something like that.
So the second patent, the second piece of your IP for that adjustability is not something that's available on traditional older type physical shock absorbers, correct?
No, there are technologies out there that implement this. So like you have air suspension cars that have air suspension in them at the moment, and there's some electromechanical shock absorbers in cars. I don't know if currently implemented in any commercially available vehicles there's an energy harvesting shock absorber yet, but they do have ones that adjust the shock absorbers. Like when you have a car that like even in Teslas they have comfort mode and you can adjust the height of the shock absorber. Those things are all active shock absorber components.
Okay. I'm going to try and okay, so let me back up. So I announced a new feature a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I'm going to switch. New feature a couple of weeks ago. I'm checking in with previous experts of the day. Thank you, Craig. I've been fascinated by what you've said. Unlike Glenn, I understood most of what you're saying.
You were IBM for what, 100 years?
100 years at IBM.
Okay.
So, but I wanted to check in with some previous experts of the day. So I'm going to try and reach Marcio, and he's going to talk to us.
Cool.
Just mirror the screen. You know how to do it?
I'm sorry, what?
Mirror it.
No, I don't.
Come on, man, come on. It's fine.
So we're live. Go ahead.
Come on.
So,
You forgot.
sorry. Did I get you to speak? I did get you to spell out the
the
URL,
which is really hard.
So different topic. So we didn't talk about this, but thank you to Guidant and Revive for being based here in Boca Raton. They're actually based at the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, BRIC, an amazing facility. So talk a little. BRIC is also very active in Tech Hub, and a lot of amazing companies are based there. So talk a little about what's it like working at BRIC.
So it's incredible. We have this fishbowl style office where everything is glass, and so it's an amazing setup. We have, as Guidant does teleoperations, as I mentioned, and so we have this really cool remote monitoring control center where there's 3 remote monitoring control stations with these curved screens and an entire dashboard up on the wall, and so it looks incredible. It feels like you're at like an airport control center with, or like how you see in when you're looking at the casinos, how they have those walls with all of the cameras and everything.
Right.
So we have a fleet management system in there where we control teleoperations of vehicles. It's really, really cool. And then in the back we have a lab where we do all of our evaluation on stuff and soldering and electronics. And then we also over at Tech Runway over at FAU is where we also have a testing facility where we have some of our autonomous vehicles that we do testing on. That's where we have one of the Jeeps that we did testing for the shock absorber on.
Right. I forgot to ask you, and I don't remember if I did read your bio. Did Guidant or Revive go through FAU Tech Runway as well?
Yes.
Okay. Did
Yeah,
not realize that.
was a graduate. Yeah.
Okay. Kudos to Florida Atlantic Tech Runway, soon to be the runway.
Yes, that's right. They're
so,
changing.
Great program. You went there. By the way, I forgot to mention, go Owls.
Owls.
Little owls, not big owls. Okay. All right. We're going to try and call Marcio. Thank you, Steph.
Oh, cool.
Oops.
You hit the oops button. Okay.
So Marcio was on a couple of weeks ago. Little different subject. International companies wanting to do business in South Florida. We'll see if we can connect with him.
Cool.
Hopefully he recognizes your number.
No, spam call.
Yeah. I can't.
Well, different topic. Are y'all? So one of the other core areas that Tech Hub focuses on is tech talent. By any chance, are y'all hiring for, you know, technical type roles?
We're always looking for
Okay.
new and top talent. As the company grows, we have more and more that needs to be done, and so by having people that we've already met, that we start understanding who they are, can fast track that process. Absolutely.
Do you have any intern roles coming up?
That would be maybe
Alright,
something
let's
that
see.
I can forward you over to Harold or Gabriel at the
Yeah.
company. They may be able to answer that at the moment, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're ever closed to any of that. We love the community. We love connecting people, and if there's people out there that can do the job and are really looking to do stuff and gain some experience. So
Well, we'll definitely
We're all
need
about
to
that.
talk. We sit on workforce development boards. That's
Yeah,
what I
cool.
do.
You know how to get out of this? Excuse me, sorry.
Just
So we are live.
And
How do I do that?
cancel. Or close
Yeah.
the app.
And how do I do that?
Hit the button in the middle there at the bottom.
cancel.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Did that? Nope.
Close the app for him.
You know how to do it?
Is this Android?
No, iPhone.
Give it.
I'm not a iPhone user.
So we are live. We do occasionally have a technical issue.
We blame everything on the internet,
Nope,
just so you
nope,
know.
it
I
happens.
do.
It happens.
Stuff happens, yeah.
So there's a lot of things going on in the background.
Okay.
So let me try Valentina.
Wow, look how many contacts you have. This is on OWL, OWWLLS.
Mhm.
If you don't have the app, get there. You can download it on any.
Okay.
Okay, and Val is next. Let's see. OWWLL. If you didn't get that, download the app. Build your profile.
OWWLL. Use thank you. Oh. Valentina. I am good. Thanks for taking the call. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. For you, it'd be good. Good morning, I think. Still correct. Well, we have very low standards.
Yes, it's part of my work. Hey Val, it's part of my work release program,
So,
but we
I-
can't talk about it.
I guess I have to say, Glen and I know each other well enough. I can say those things to him. I can't say it to everybody.
That's good.
So Valentina, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little about your company, and then what's new since you were expert of the day on OWL. Thank you.
Oh, cool, cool. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So, are we talking specifically into the shock absorber or just in general? Okay. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, we are moving very, very fast pace, and one of the big things that people talk about is artificial intelligence, and it's not necessarily something new. It's something that's been reimagined from what we do biologically, and it's taking that onto a new platform. And so we're entering this new world with autonomous robots, like these humanoid robots that are going to become more and more functional. Not just that they're there, but they can do more and more. And I really am excited to see how that changes and advances our ability to make things at a more efficient rate, at where you can have that manufacturing part of things be even more automated, where like a lot of CNC manufacturing and most of the manufacturing in this, I think it's a manufacturing 3.0 or 2.0 or 4.0, one of those numbers. They've automated a lot of the process where like you can go online, upload your model, and a lot of that just goes through that process to like implementation where you can get something back and making it cheaper and cheaper. So like with these shock absorbers, one of the things I was mentioning is that to tip that point is that it needs to be more cost effective to make this device than the energy in which it produces. And so as that technology becomes altogether more and more efficient, it's going to make technology like this able to be implemented, where sometimes it's just not the right time in existence for it to fit. We're hitting a really, really exciting time for a lot of things to really come to fruition and to fit together. And as a planet, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, that like just like regenerative braking, I mean, you have something that this vehicle will become more of like imagine how it has its own persona, its own being, and part of that is how it can efficiently use its energies and use its functionality in our society. Because we have a lot of these going around.
Just a simple comment. Your only limitation here is your imagination.
Yeah.
This can work. Smart buildings, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
You got wind farms, things rattle.
Mm-hmm.
Why not take advantage of the energy?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's actually really, really interesting. So one of the things that I look at is that we have, like I said, it's based upon the way in which our biology does artificial neural networks is what they're called there, because they're based upon neural networks. And we have humans out there that are good, that are bad. I think that we're going to have a similar type of thing where you have these good AI and these bad, like it's not like when I say good AI and bad AI, it's you have something that's going to, I think, over time transition more where as a society we accept that it's a being that has some essence of autonomy that is its own personal autonomy, and that within that you're going to have AI that can be police of other AI, and as time goes on, that these AI, we have this buzzword AI that's like it has a lot of, like you said, stigma behind it, where it's really these computers that are becoming more and more able to make inference on the way that the world works rather than on just programming this thing can do this if that. It's learning from the way that the world works. And so the same way a human being, and we never stop making human beings, and so I don't look at it as any different than that.
There are a few human beings out there I wish we had not made, but I won't go there.
But we can take what we've learned from that, and we can try to and be a positive force, because like you said, it is there, it's prevalent, it's going to be there. And how can we work towards making it good rather than and harness the best that we can out of it, even though the bad will always be there. It's something that's just a product of nature. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I agree. Well, thank you. Oh, cool. Awesome.
So,
sounds good. Thank you.
That's a good lead-in. So thank you for all of that, Valentino. What's I know you've been a user of OWL. Talk a little about how you've used OWL since you've been on the show. Okay. 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 All right, I'll let it go this time. Do what, that's why I like the office. So within the OWL app, you can, I don't think we talked about this. You can either set office hours, specific times of the day, or you can go what I call on demand. I like setting office hours. By the way, if you want to reach out to me on OWL, my office hours are Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Call me on OWL, we can talk. So Valentina, why don't you spell your name, Valentina? I don't know if you can see it up there, if people want to reach out to you as well. .com. So, go ahead, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. Pleasure meeting you.
So we have about a minute left. Any upcoming events, things you want to specifically mention as it relates to Red Century? Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for everything you do, Valentina, and more to come. Thank you.
Thanks.
While I do this, Glenn, you have any other questions for Craig?
Well, let me go back to AI if I may.
Sure.
We were at, you've now heard multiple times, Tech Talent Fest. We had about 400 or 500 people, something like that, something like
Right.
that. I got to speak to a lot of students, more importantly, faculty, administration. They're concerned about AI. Is it going to reduce jobs? And I said, real simple, go follow the money. I have been around middle, high, tech schools, universities, and everybody we're hearing, we're not going to mention names, are considering spending lots and lots of money in AI. That's good. Now the downside is someone may get laid off. That could happen. And there's a company in Broward that made that announcement 3 months ago, laid off 2,000 people. They're investing in AI. I was in that city talking to a middle school group 2 weeks ago. I said, I want you to follow that money. Go get intern programs, go get apprenticeship, get scholarships. They're all sitting there. And look at what
Glenn,
that
I'm
company's
going to
doing.
interrupt you.
Yes, you may.
Marcy, are you there? Thank you. So we had technical difficulties previously. Steph, being amazing person that she is, has resolved those. So thanks for taking the call, Marcio. Marcio was also expert of the day a couple of weeks ago. So why don't you introduce yourself, Marcio, and tell us what you do. And if you were able to watch your show, ask a question of Craig, and we'll go from there. It happens.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, cool. Oh, Oh, cool.
You know, Marcy, I'm just gonna interrupt, that is a great point. So obviously, the US market, big market, but I'm assuming Revive, wants to have a global presence. So, talk a little about maybe international markets as well, if you can, for
So-
Revive.
So globally, the EV market, I think by 2030, I think was the number, 2030 was like 35 million EVs that were expected to be there. And so globally, we have the United States. I'm blanking on the number of the United States at the moment, but as we expand where we currently are, we have a huge compound annual growth rate of EV vehicles. And absolutely, in the global market, there's other countries that sometimes are a little bit more forward with technology, and the regulations are different. So absolutely, I'd be.
So I think that'd be a great area, Marcio, maybe to follow up with Craig and talk about that, given that's your expertise.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's definitely connect. Thank you. Okay. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Well, we're independent of the grid, and so you put this on a vehicle, and as long as the vehicle has a battery built in it, it's like a capacitor, just like when you have solar energy and you put that battery on the wall. It's independent of the grid, so it's adding to the vehicle and reducing from the amount that the vehicle is demanding from the grid. So that's the better way to kind of look at that technology. So in an eVTOL, I mean, ultimately you have when it lands and when it takes off that the shock absorber moves, and while you're flying, you have the wings or whatever support structure that's oscillating. You could think of adapting that, like I said, this mechanical motion rectifier is the main energy harvesting part of this, and adapting that into harnessing energy from the oscillation of the wings, even from airplanes and from eVTOL. So I always look at just like what are the possible capabilities of this, and then you have to think of the flip side of that is, like we said, what is the energy that is required from the vehicle, and how much that offsets it. And so that's the next part of going to market is basically that type of implementation, is something that finds a product that needs it, and then tuning this and molding it into the mass-produced, scaled-up version of where we currently are.
Just to answer the question, 3.3 million EVs in the US, 40 million globally.
Okay.
So it's a good start.
Yeah.
And that's according to AI.
And that's by 2030?
No, that's now.
That's now. Okay.
Yeah, that's current.
That's
Current.
great. Yeah, so there's a lot of EVs out there, and that's one of the things right now that people have as some people call it range anxiety. Is
Right.
Like I have a Tesla, and I don't get anxiety necessarily over it, but it is something that mentally is like, oh, I gotta go charge this soon, and I don't have a charger at home, so I have to stop and I have to think about it.
I know what an eVTOL is, but you might want to explain what that is.
Oh yeah,
Talking about that.
so you mentioned an eVTOL. It's an electric vehicle that does takeoff and landing, kind of like a helicopter, but it's like a hybrid between like a helicopter and an airplane.
Right.
And so
And-
it takes off vertically, and then it can fly utilizing the wings, and then when it rotates the wings to then be able to land vertically, use it like a helicopter.
Right,
Or like a
and there
drone.
actually is at least one company in South Florida manufacturing that. The way I think of it, and the use case I've heard, first will probably be for air taxis.
Okay.
It's kind of a good use case because they're short
That'd be
haul,
cool. That'd be cool.
not very long, and you know, it can take you. The example I heard, to go from the Miami airport to downtown Miami, depending on the time of day, can take you an hour, hour and a half just because of traffic. And a eVTOL can do it in like 30 minutes. So tremendous amount of savings in a lot of different areas, including, you know, carbon fuel burning as well.
Mhm.
Marcio, why don't you go ahead, spell out the URL of your website as well. Name of your company and the URL. Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. Sure. Cool. Oh, cool. Oh, cool.
Thank you, Marcio.
Thank you.
Marcia, nice meeting you.
Thanks for the call.
Looking forward to connecting.
I think you're going to get a lot of connections today, by the way.
Great,
You
great.
better go available all day today.
And thank you both for bringing me on to this show. I really appreciate it.
He's the master. I'm his humble servant.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Don't forget that.
Yes.
Marcio alluded to something. God, I've forgotten the name.
The one in Orlando?
No, the new federal tech hub in Miami, Climate Ready, federal grant.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, they got lots of grant
So you
funding.
familiar with that?
No,
I got the
I'm
name
writing it
wrong,
down.
and I apologize.
But we're talking in the tens of millions,
Yeah,
something like that.
the federal government has 20 or 30 tech hubs around. We like the name, by the way. They do call them tech hubs. They're funded one based in Miami-Dade County.
Okay.
Because of the danger, really, of ocean rising and climate change. I think it's called the Climate Ready Tech Hub. But Glen mentioned federal funding. They've gotten, I think it's $35 million
Yeah.
grant.
Wow.
And they're trying to support local companies.
Okay.
So that might be something, that might be some grants available to y'all as well. I'll find the official name and let you know. But
Thank you.
we're coming up the time I hate. We're gonna try and wrap up. Thank you, everybody. But before we do that, why don't we go around the table? I'll let Glen go first. Any parting thoughts? Then I'll let you go next, and then I'll wrap up the show. Anything you want to mention, Glen, we haven't talked about, or you want to?
Well,
Promote.
here, let me give you the Tech Hub. South Florida Climate Resilience
There you go.
Tech Hub. And 30 million or so sounds about right. Let's all be careful out there. Don't assume that you can handle critical infrastructure going down, talk to a professional. And Val was on earlier, we all work together in cybersecurity. If you haven't checked that in since the pandemic, it's time to look at that today.
Right. And it's one of those things, don't do this at home. Don't try this at home, folks. Kids, don't do this at home. Hire a professional, Valentina or Glen. So, Craig, thank you again for being on.
you.
Great show. Anything we forgot to talk about you want to mention, or anything at all? Parting thoughts?
Nothing in particular other than thank you both for having me on the show, and it was really nice to get to present this for everybody. And if anybody's interested in getting involved with this technology and putting together a licensing structure or something to bring this out and really help get this into the society, that's the next stage that we need your help with, is that we've built the technology, we've proved the technology, and now we need to get it implemented. And so if you're interested in that, definitely reach out, and we're more than happy to set up a meeting with you and see what we can do.
So why don't you spell your name as well? We said
Sure.
it a few times, but you might want to spell it.
Sure, my name is Craig, C-R-A-I-G, and my last name Adis, A-D-E-S. E as in Edward, and S as in Sam.
Available on the OWWL app, available on LinkedIn. One thing we've kind of alluded to, but you made a really good point. So Revive Energy has proven the technology. There's no doubt the technology works. You want to go to the next step, actually implement and start using the technology. So if anyone is interested, please reach out to Greg. I want to thank Greg for
Thank you.
being on the show. Great show. I want to thank Glenn for being on the show. I want to thank Steph. You can't see Steph, but she's back there. Thank you. Sorry we had some technical difficulties, but we are live. Good evening, good afternoon, good night, depending on when you're watching the webcast or the replay. Thank you again. Call me on Al. If you're not a member of Tech Hub and you want to join, that's my regular day job. I am on Al on LinkedIn as well. Thank you, Jason, if you're watching. And we're done for the day.
What's
Have
the website for Tech Hub? You didn't mention that.
It's www.southfloриdatechhub.com.
Org.
Or just, yeah, you're right, org. How did I get this job? Thank you.
Thanks,
thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can we do or you've done 100 pictures, right?
Yeah, we're gonna take one there sitting like that.
And we'll do one standing.
Headphones or
No.
off?
Yeah,
oh.
put them on.
Oh, okay.
Put them on.
All right.
So we look geeky.
Yeah.
Do
Okay.
what Steph
And,
says.
and if I can give you my camera, I'd appreciate it.
Get this guy.
Yeah, you want to, okay.
All right, I'll hide my soda,
Okay, you want to give me your phone?
if you don't mind.
Okay. I'm going to send you the link for today.
Yeah, he's gonna send you everything too.
I know, but I'm going to broadcast right now and hit my
Okay.
hit
That'll
my
work.
peeps.
That'll work.
See, it's all about peeps.
By the way, I'll send you the link as well. If you have a marketing person that wants to have access
Okay.
to